Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everyone to the June 20th, 2023 City Council meeting of the City of Windom. Tonight on the consent agenda are included the minutes of the following meetings. Council minutes of June 6th, Street Committee of June 1st, Community Center Commission June 12th, EDA June 12th, Library Board June 13th, Park and Rec Commission on June 14th. Also included are the regular bills. Council wish to take action.
I'll make a notion to accept all the regular bills and the consent agenda as is.
I'll second.
Motion by Scott, second by Jenny. Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Anybody opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you. Department heads.
John Nelson, Liquor Store Manager. Just to update the council on our liquor store expansion project. We've completed the construction documents, and today is the first day that bids are open. So we are accepting bids for the project. Our architect has all the information. I believe information will be in the local paper 3 times over the next month. From there, all bids are due July 20th. Steve, myself, and representatives of TSP will be doing bid opening July 20th at 2 p.m. here in the council chambers. And then we'll have that information for you for the council packet for the August 1st meeting.
Okay, any questions for John? Okay, thank you for the update. Appreciate it. Any other department heads? Last call. Okay, we're going to move on. We have hospital folks here tonight who are going to talk to us a little bit about the project. Please introduce yourself for people who don't know you.
Good evening. This is Shelby Medina. I'm the CEO of the hospital.
Hi, my name is Dan Blue. I'm a family physician. I'm the medical director for Windom Area Health.
Hi, and I'm John Pearl. I'm the CFO at the hospital.
Thank you. So, Shelby, you're going to take the lead here, introducing the start of this, or
Yes.
however you're going to
Yes.
do that. Okay.
So first, I just would like to thank the council for allowing us time to come here and present to you a little bit more of our rationale for our strategic plan, and tell you a little bit about how we came to what we're going to present tonight. But also what I would like to just communicate first and foremost is the strategy for the Windom Area Health Hospital is and always will be for it to have services that will meet the needs of not only this community, but the communities that surround and support it, as well as for it to remain an independently operated hospital, city-owned hospital. Sanford has a management agreement with Windom Area Health, and I think that it will be good to just communicate to the community and to the council really what that means. We share no revenues between Sanford Health and Windom Area Health. What Sanford offers the hospital is our ability to access special contracting rates for supply chain, for our electronic medical record, for any of our billing and payroll systems, which is significant cost savings to the hospital, simply because we're able to take advantage of those discounts as a larger system or part of a larger system, as opposed to if we were to go out and try to bid it ourselves. That really is the extent of the involvement that Sanford is involved in the hospital as far as providing it with any contract negotiation pieces. I am a Sanford employee. They do provide me to, my role with, as the CEO of the hospital is really two. I have two sets of individuals that I report to, my governing board of directors and the community of Windom, as well as my leaders in Sanford. My role for Sanford is to make sure that I'm here to secure and strengthen relationships and make sure that Sanford is aware of how they can support the needs of the community. My role to this community and to the board is making sure that the decisions that we make gives us the opportunity to remain independent, independently owned, independently operated, and be able to be financially stable well into the future. So developing those strategic plans that allow us to do that. I will say, over the past 6 years, I came to Windom Area Health in 2016. Over the past 6 years, we've seen significant growth, not only in the hospital financials, but in the service lines for this community. And that growth is just the beginning. It was all a pre-planned, every step that we've made is to set us up for the next step in our strategic plan. We are currently at that step. We're financially sound. We have a reputation around our surrounding communities with being able to pull market and patients to our community from 90-mile radius. Our wound center has already proven that. We also have the ability to invest in ourselves. Right now, currently, where a lot of other critical access hospitals or surrounding community hospitals do not have that same capacity to do so. In healthcare, you have to take advantage of those opportunities as they present themselves. It's better for you to get ahead of the curve as it is to try to make up for that market and gain that market share. Tonight, what we would like to present to you, and I brought Dr. Blue as well as John as part of the senior executive team, because they present different aspects of the strategy, and we need to make sure that we're looking at not only the business end of the strategy, but also identifying the clinical needs and the medical care of our community and how we are able to execute that in a financially responsible way. So they all bring advice, they all bring opportunity for dialogue for us to be able to move forward and make the best decisions that we possibly can. Again, with the motivation, making sure that we're staying independent and financially sound well into the future. So the strategic plan and what we're going to communicate tonight for growth is part of that strategic plan is a medical office building. A medical office building has always been part of the discussions that we started even in 2016. But again, in order for us to make it to this point, we had to make sure that we had service lines and growth, and we saw that growth, that we knew that we could continue to be financially sound because we knew that we were going to make a significant investment in this building, and we needed to make sure that we could do that while still remaining financially sound enough to invest in future opportunities. We are at that point today. And, excuse me, our strategy and focus is always going to be continue to build on the services that we already have. So we're not going to leave those behind. But there are opportunities, and we have a reputation out there of where we have physicians who actually want to come to our facility or are attracted to this community and want to provide and believe in our vision, and they want to help in that vision. I believe that Windom Area Health and the Windom community can be a hub, a medical hub, for individuals in surrounding communities to come to seek services. We're a very mobile society, and if we have patients in our own community that's willing to travel outside of our community, 96 miles to a health system to get services, why shouldn't we believe that they would be able to travel to us if we can prove that we have quality care here? We need to be able to believe in that. We've proven that that's true. We've proven that we can recruit, and we've proven that we're able to provide that quality care. In addition to that, one thing that's different in our facility as it is in others is we have an extremely stable workforce. a clinical workforce, as well as the ability to attract other professionals into the hospital and into the community as well. We have grown, I want to say, from what we started out with maybe under 100 employees at the hospital, and then don't quote me on these numbers too significantly, to now we're up to 160. So we've been able to grow also employment opportunities within this hospital. Again, making sure that we're always being financially responsible and always looking at lean processes and how can we do things more strategically, how can we do things more financially sound, and how can we cut and shave wherever we can. And we're going to continue to do that because we need to be able to continue to reinvest back into our hospital. A couple of years ago, we did a master facility plan for the grounds, and we did a master mechanical facility plan, knowing that eventually we wanted to move towards looking at a medical office building. What that was able to do for us is to make sure that when we were updating our current hospital plant, that we are also taking into consideration what we were going to need for a medical office building in the future, and making sure that we were getting ourselves set up for that so that we could take advantage of those cost savings when the day came, which is what we're proposing to be now. So with that, what I would like to do is turn it over to Dr. Blue so he can speak a little bit more thoroughly on the medical office building and the recruitment strategies and what that means for us in the community from the medical standpoint.
Yes, I'm Dr. Dan Blue. I'm the medical director. I'm coming up on 1 year of being part of this team. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. When I was asked to I was hired directly by the board and to work with the team and to help move things along. And one of the things that really caught my eye was those first few months that I got here I thought, wow, this is a hidden gem. There are a lot of things that are right here. And it really speaks to many of the things that Shelby just described as really over the last several years of the good planning and the steps they've taken here. It was about in October that between late October that we met with our board, and we really went into developing a 5-year strategic plan. And I think the thing I want to mention is that the building is just one element of that strategic plan, and frankly, it's a tool. At the heart of this strategic plan is about recruiting and retaining great talent, not only with all of our staff, but specifically with regards to providers. We're at a stage with healthcare providers in our community where we really need to be mindful of that. We want to not only grow services and add new things that haven't been here before, like what Dr. Jim Hinshaw, who just started in June, is an OB gynecologist, is going to be able to do services that were not offered here. But we also need to be mindful of our primary care base as well, and to be able to help support and those physicians and grow that part of it as well. Just even this last week, we've been in contact with 2 general surgeons that have interest in taking a look at us. That would expand. Right now, we have a general surgeon that's here 1 day a week. To be able to have a general surgeon that would be able to be here dedicated to this region is another great additive feature. So that's how the plan really started. One of the things I always kind of said, we need to build on the things we're really good at. We are not going to be everything to everybody. We can't do it all. That's why you have partners like Avera and Sanford, and it's important to have those relationships. But we need to build on what we need for this community, and as well as what we're good at. And one of the things that we're really blessed is to have the specialty physicians that come here to the outreach clinics. We've just gone through kind of rebranding because we want people to know that Windom Area Health has a really great and talented team of providers at that specialty clinic. And we have a chance to grow that. Right now, it was about 8 years ago, or when was that built, the outpatient?
2017, I believe.
2017. The outreach and that addition on the front of the hospital was done. Great planning again. But we've got mixed in there, we've got our psychological services, we've got chiropractor, we've got some other things in there that, frankly, we could move to another location in an ambulatory setting like this medical office building and open up that space that's close to the ORs for orthopedic surgery growth, for our urologist, for general surgery, and the list can go on, ear, nose, and throat and things. So we need that space. Do you want us to walk through that plan in general?
Yes.
So in general, on the medical office building, what is planned to be built there, it is designed for 4 stories. And the first floor is all primary care clinic kind of footprint. You'll walk in a door. It'll also improve figuring out where you go when you come to the hospital campus. Yes, it is a hospital, but it's more of a healthcare center or campus, as I would say here. And we want to make sure that people know, well, this is where I go to enter, and most direct access right on into the ambulatory setting. So this main floor is primary care. The second floor has a very similar footprint. Dr. Hinshaw, OB Gynecology, will be there. There'll be space for general surgery. Our mental health team that is just been launched in May and actually getting fairly busy right out of the bat here. They're located on that floor as well. Integrative health is another component, another piece that would be there. And so really our second floor, when we open, first and second floor are going to be primarily full. And so our board recommended for us to really think about going another floor and having that space available, which I agree I think we'll be in that space sooner than later. That third floor will be shelled. That's for future growth. And then the fourth floor is a community wellness facility. And I think a couple of notes on that from my perspective, and Shelby, you can probably fill in more detail. But, when it comes to the thing about having this connected to a healthcare facility like this, yes, it's a great place that people could come and for wellness and fitness and things like that. But from a physician perspective, when I have a person that's suffered a heart attack or has congestive heart failure or has pulmonary disease, there are rehab programs that they can go into. Even after orthopedic surgery, they can go to physical therapy. Pretty soon that time runs out. For their long-term best health, if we have programs that are best suited for these types of individuals, we can have group fitness and wellness kind of programs that will cater to those individuals. And we have some of that already going on in our facility in a very small area today.
Yeah, and I just want to also, when we think of a workout facility, we're not just thinking about gym. This actually does have patient care ability. For instance, what Dr. Blue was referring to is after you have knee surgery, for instance, and your insurance no longer provides, you've already hit your physical therapy limit, and your insurance is saying, hey, this is it, this is all we're going to pay for. We have what's called a Bridge the Gap program, to where we have a personal trainer within our wellness center that's able to work with those individuals on a cost-effective manner to continue to make sure that they're progressing in their healing experience. That's just one example. There's also potential growth that could come out of our sports injury clinics when those are developed as well too. So it's going to house individuals who have the ability to do more, I want to say, outpatient work, if you will, that's no longer acceptable for insurance coverage, but those patients still need that. In addition to that, again, we have opportunities potentially to take advantage of some government programs. I know Minnesota recently just announced that they're going to be one of 8 states working with the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation Center to formulate or pilot what's called accountable care organization models for critical access hospitals like ours who do not have a direct relationship, a direct employment relationship with primary care. What will that do for us? What that will do for us is open up opportunities for us to negotiate stronger with our payers. We're currently, right now, the payers pretty much tell us what they're going to pay us. This will give us an opportunity to enter into risk share models that actually increase our ability for more reimbursement based off of our performance. One of the areas that they are going to judge us on or that we need to prove is population health and how we're getting out there to educate our community on either how their lifestyles contribute to their healthcare needs or how their recovery efforts contribute to the healthcare needs. And so we need to prove that we're really out there engaging with our community and that we also have programs that they can participate in that's going to be cost-effective programs to be able to help them engage in making better choices and lifestyle choices, in addition to even using your hospital resources appropriately, like encouraging us to find primary care when they're coming to our emergency department and don't have established primary care. Those are opportunities that are coming down the pike that is also further going to give us an opportunity to engage with those payers and place us in an even stronger financial position than we are currently today. And one of the main reasons why we're also looking at that as part of this medical office building program. With that, I'd like to open it up to John now to provide just some preliminary discussions on financing options and where we're going to go with that in the next steps.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we can move to that slide, please. So obviously there's going to be a cost for this building. It doesn't just show up. So the budget for the building is about $30 million. The funding for that will come likely from two sources. One will be cash reserves from the hospital. The other will be external financing. One avenue we're pursuing is the USDA. USDA is a government program, federal government program that offers very good interest rates, especially for projects of this size and the length of term that we'd like to finance it. However, the USDA has a lot of requirements, and so you got to make sure you step through that process appropriately and you answer all the questions, cross the T's, dot the I's, those types of things. But that is a preferred route based on rate. We, however, are looking at other financing approaches. One is securing another bond through another institution, potentially using at some point maybe some of the city's ability to bond. When I say that, I think it's careful. You have to understand that that's not looking at the city or the citizens, the community to help pay for this. This project would be fully funded by the revenues of the hospital. So I just want to make that part clear. You can see the timeline we have here. We have this presentation tonight. The next couple of months we'll be working with Steve and Todd Hagan, who is a financial consultant that the city uses from Ehlers, and proposing or looking at analyzing all those different options that are afforded to us. And the plan would be to get financing in place to get the project started, temporary financing, and then if we do go the USDA route, because of the time involved to make that happen, it could, funding and everything could be finalized first quarter of 2024. But, we're anticipating that this project would get started this fall. So there's a lot of things up in the air yet that I think will come together very quickly in the next month or 6 weeks. That will lay out our plan a little bit more smoothly, I guess.
Are you ready for questions?
You bet.
Yes.
Okay, could you turn your mics off, please, just until, yeah, then we don't get the echo. Thank you. And I'll remind council members, I was instructed from the audience that if you don't speak right into the mic, they cannot hear. Okay. So with that, I'll open it up for council questions, concerns. Your folks are here to answer the questions. Council, Marv.
When you talked about the building, and you talk about a four-store store building in Windom, that's kind of the surprising part of it. That third floor being a shell, and if financing is an issue, and it doesn't sound like that came from you guys, it came from the board, is there much of a cost savings to actually not putting the third story in there if you're only doing the shell?
You know, it was brought up by the board to us to consider that, and but the reality is that we're going to be full on 1 and 2, and so when you do look at the cost of the overall project, and John, I know you've talked about it before, it might be $5 million of the 30. And if down the road you end up trying to put that on again, it's going to be 3 times that. So, you know, I think it is it is good for us to actually plan to do that, and we think it'd be the smart play.
And I would like to just echo on some of that as well too. Is again, I want to in our presentation, you know, we stated that there's quite a few of our own hospital services that we are operating currently out of our specialty clinics. Those hospital services within themselves are capped at their growth potential right now simply because we only have dedicated days and space that they can use, and they have to share with all the other service lines that are also coming out of that space. Moving those over is going to essentially almost fill the second floor already immediately. Very little wiggle room. Secondly, we have outreach providers, 3 of our specialists currently, who have requested to increase their days in presence and ability to do more surgeries. And we quite simply can't offer that because we don't have the space to be able to allow them. So without this building moving forward and having it be a tool and our ability, I would, if I was a betting person, which I somewhat am, I guess you could say, I would say, you know, we'd be looking at potentially moving in that within at least a couple of years based off of what our other strategies are, if we're able to execute on them as quickly as what we've been able to with these. So that's just a little bit more of that.
That's what I was thinking too. I mean, we have to keep in mind, this is probably, by the time this is completed, it's 24 months down the road. I think we'll be looking at, in 24 months, we'll be looking for space on that floor. I think the other thing that's really important to recognize is that that's a nice campus where the hospital is, and it looks like there's a lot of space there. But because of the contour and everything, when you start adding the required number of parking spots that we need, we were trying to look at what are all the alternatives where we could place this facility on that campus. And it really boiled down to not only being the best and most cost effective, but about the only location we could do that was where the existing medical office building is, the clinic, and it only could be a certain size footprint. So the only answer is we had to go up.
Well, one can't argue with your commitment and enthusiasm to do this. So as a board, I guess our issue is the financial side. And at the meetings that I've sat in, it looks like you're getting kind of a handle on that. So hopefully.
And in addition to that, and thank you for that question, we have to also take into consideration that these, you know, the physicians that we're able to recruit to come to our community, you know, Dr. Hinshaw is one, but we're not stopping at one. you know, we need to make sure that we have succession planning so that we can continue to build upon these. And these services generate additional services that the hospital is currently not doing. So that is additional revenue sources that will also assist in helping us remain, help us pay back this building, but also remain strong enough to be able to reinvest back in and change with our community needs.
With the current staffing that you have out there now and with the nurse shortages around the United States, period, where do you plan on recruiting all these people and doctors? And with the doctors that we have here in town, are they going to have a spot too? And so we ain't losing rural doctors, because it's hard to get doctors out here in the country.
I'll speak to the actual staffing piece of it, and I know Dr. Blue can speak to the provider piece of it as well too. There is no doubt that there is a national nursing shortage. However, with that being said, what we already have been positioning with and what we've been lucky with is we really have maintained a strong clinical core group of nurses, as well as looking at more of a team model approach to say, okay, we know that we knew we were going to have a healthcare shortage well prior to the pandemic. So we were already starting to make plans and preparations for that as well too. What we need to do is we need to look at scopes of practice and optimize those scopes of practice and look at if we have so many RNs, but we still need to have services met, what are other healthcare professionals that are out there and available to us? How can we take care of our patients on a team-based approach as opposed to a one-to-one patient care model? Clinic nursing staff, you don't necessarily need all RNs to provide clinic care. You can use medical assistants, you can use LPNs. So we've been lucky in our ability to recruit there as well too. We've been lucky that we've been able to retain the staff that we have, and I believe that we are able to retain that strong quality clinical staff, which is also an attractive reason why providers want to come here. They have trust in us, we have stability, and they see the quality care that we provide here, so they are comfortable with providing that care. Our staff, we really have worked to engage them throughout this entire pandemic. We've been working with them to put the right leaders in place, to be that strategic thinker and think 3-4 years down the road and get us set up incrementally for that, as well as engaged our staff to say, hey, here's where we're at. Can we look at what our processes are today and how can we do the same quality care with less? We know that we can't just say we need to recruit more. We already know that. How can we care for those patients differently? In addition to that, we have explored and are moving forward with international recruitment. So we are in the process right now of looking at working with a recruitment firm for international nurses as well too. That is a fairly lengthy, not a quick process. In the meantime, we've also put strategies together to where we have and encourage our CNAs and those going through LPN school, we actually hire them as an intern, and then for their commitment to come and work for us after they graduate. So we help with their schooling, we give them experience and training, which also helps them with school and passing their boards, but it also gives us a quicker orientation period because they're already accustomed to a lot of the culture and process of our organization. None of those are quick fixes, but those are things that we have in place for the future so that we can continue to remain stable in those areas. With that, I'll let Dr. Blue speak about the physicians.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on a really important point, and it's really a lot of, like I mentioned before, it's really a lot of the why we want to invest in these strategies and invest in a facility. Not only are we going to have momentum, and you should never underestimate the power of momentum, because people like to be a part of something that's successful, that's growing, that all those aspects. But and I think another thing is that size does matter a bit. We need enough of physicians so that people feel they have a quality of life and work-life balance as well. It's really a key thing. But we need to make sure we're providing not only facilities that people want to come and work with, but also bring in the tools and some of those other things. And the reason I mention that is in July here, we're going to be launching a surgical assisted or robotic system, a robotic assisted surgery program. And I caution everybody, this is not about a robot doing surgery, but it is all about minimally invasive surgery. And I love Jim Hinshaw, for instance, is passionate about this. For certain surgeries, it is the optimal tool. And part of what's important is these are the tools that our next generation of physicians and providers are being trained on. So when they come out, guess where they want to go? They want to come to a place that has those kind of tools. And they also want to be around a facility or a place that has, I'll say, physicians that can be good mentors, especially for young physicians coming out. And that's why I feel really blessed that we've got someone like Dr. Hinshaw, who's a little bit older in his career, and has that experience. He's going to help us with that next generation. So I think your comments and thoughts around recruitment are really spot on and important. But it really is why we need to be thinking about this and investing at this time.
What about it? We have a lot of older patients here, and we have doctors in place with them. Do they have a spot? Do they have a place for them, or?
You mean for the physicians? Yes. Absolutely. Because this lands on the footprint right where the clinic that was on the campus was, it does affect both Sanford Health as well as Dr. Tabor. And, again, our community here has been blessed to have Drs. Olson, Drs. Dines, and Dr. Tabor for almost, 30 years plus, 33, I think, was what Dr. Tabor will tell you. And it's been a blessing. But, and so for Dr. Tabor in particular, I've been working with him personally over the last, since the early part of May. And I know that he has options to look at whatever he does but we felt that we need to have an option for him as well. And I know that he's excited about that. He wants to know he's got a spot. The area of the hospital, it takes a little bit of doing, but the area of the hospital that we use temporarily as an ER has direct access to the outside. And actually, that footprint will work really well. And so working with him, we've identified the number of rooms, some minor improvements that we need to do for a temporary facility. And we're moving forward with that plan.
Other questions? Marv, you're itching again.
So if you're a young physician ready to make your mark in the world, why would you come to a town of less than 5,000 surrounded by small towns?
So I think it's another, I think, again, Windom, we need to recognize some really great assets. One of it is the location. Yes, we're 5,000 people. We've got amazing traffic going through here too, by the way. But if you take a radius, and I've been told this several times, if we go out even 35 miles in a radius, there's 60 to 70,000 people that you could actually tally up. That's what I'm told. It seems like a lot. Even if it's half that many, it's a lot, But there's the density around here with all those towns, from Mountain Lake, it actually reaches into Worthington. And I truly believe that Windom has the opportunity to be a hub, the hub for Southwest Minnesota. It's part of the reason I get excited, and I'm glad to open these doors a little bit and be able to be here, because I truly believe what we're investing in here, working with the city, I think we need to let the region know not only who we are, but what we're doing here, and that they start to think about us rather than 100 miles away kind of thing. So I think there's great opportunity. I think that's part of the why. Healthcare is in an interesting place in this country, and we're seeing physicians who are burned out, fatigued, tired of kind of the current situation, sometimes feeling like a cog in a wheel of some of these big places. And the general surgeon I just talked to last Friday, he's in Washington, D.C. He's excellently trained. I mean, he does liver transplants. He does all this. I said, okay, tell me what you personally are looking for. And he says, I've been there, I've done all that. But he says, I love patient care, and I want to come, and this is my words, to a place that is a little bit less hectic and where I can just be a physician taking care of patients. So I think we have some things that are really a plus, and we just need to let people know that. So that's a big part of it.
Can I add to that I believe, and what I hear as well too, not just with our young physicians, but some of our young professionals, such as mid-levels as well. I think we need to, recognize the benefits of mid-levels and their desire to be here as well. What we've learned from this generation as a whole, in particular in the healthcare professions that require time commitments or really require focus, is it still is very much about work-life balance, number one. What we're able to offer these individuals is just that, work-life balance, number one. Number two, we also have young individuals who this generation likes to come out and they like to be part of the decision-making, not a recipient of the decision-making. When you come into these facilities and when they're run correctly, and I think Dr. Blue, quite honestly, when I was able to meet with him and explain to him the vision and explain to him our culture and what we're needing and why we need it, he believed in that vision. He came in and said, "You're right. This is exactly you can accomplish this. This is you've got the perfect ingredients to attract." So these physicians have the opportunity also to come to our community and really have the ability to impact what the future is going to be and what they want their future here to be, while still maintaining a work-life balance. Gone are the days of the physicians that come to the rural areas and they work their clinic and they work the hospital and they're up on call all night long and they come into the ED. That is not what these new physicians are coming out and are interested in at all. We've also set up and made plans already with a hospitalist program to be able to offer them that. We had that and implemented that ahead of time so that when we are going out to recruit these physicians, we already have this established. We can actually speak to it as opposed to saying this is what we're going to do. We can say this is what we have to support you. So again, those are some other reasons why areas like ours are attractive. I'm going to just from the outside, but one thing that I can tell you is when we bring them in as well too, and we tour the town, and we tour the hospital facilities, and they meet our leaders and staff, they see and feel the pulse of those staff members and they can feel the desire of wanting to keep this hospital going for their community. We've got very dedicated staff that are very dedicated to this community. One thing that they also see when they're out in the community is we've got very dedicated community that's very much in support of the hospital. That is palpable, and that's one of the driving factors as well too.
One comment I'm going to just make to that is you say times have changed, and I can see that, but I would say our hospital, our doctors in the area wouldn't be without what it was 30 years ago when we had 3-4 doctors come to our community and actually save this to begin with. That was a very critical time, and they worked their butt off, and continue to do so. And so I just feel we have to give credit on how it started, working with those folks, to get where we are today.
Absolutely. There's absolutely no doubt, and this is not meant to be a discredit to to those physicians that have been here at all. They help set the foundation, just as previous leadership of this hospital had set the foundation of where we were today and to be able to build upon it. So we definitely have to and want to recognize those providers, but we also have a responsibility to figure out how we're going to move forward in the future so you don't get into the position that you were in 30-some years ago to feel like you're going to lose your community hospital, and that's what we're trying to do.
No, and I understand that. I just want to give some past credit here. One other thing, with the new generation coming up, have you worked with our local schools and Windom School, Mountain Lake, any of the regional ones to recruit and help train and getting to RNs or doctors, that kind of thing?
We absolutely have. As a matter of fact, the medical careers class that they implemented there, the hospital taught some of those classes in the very beginning. So, and we continue to contribute to that and work with our school systems to tap into that. So we absolutely do work with them and support that as well.
I also just reached out to a fourth-year medical student who has ties back here. I mean, having connections in this region, that's the strongest thing we can have. I talked to an anesthesiologist who was interested, who might like to move back, and she was from St. James, so the list kind of goes on there.
Yeah, thank you. That was my point. Yeah. So that sounds good. Other questions?
Yeah, I guess I came to town in 85 or 86, and at that time, the big talk was the hospital was going to close. And two people came to town that really made that change, was Dr. Tabor and Dr. Dines. So I just don't want you to think you've got everything worked out with Dr. Tabor now. I'm not a naysayer, but to get my support, I want to make sure that Dr. Tabor is taken care of and treated fairly in this whole deal.
Yeah, well, I met with him again today, and he's got and we just talked even a couple of days ago. We're pretty definite on the space that he would like to have. We've been able to meet just about every one of his requests. I think he's going to be pleased with the financial arrangement of that. It has to be a fair market value, but I think it's a good thing for him. So I think it's going to. I think that's going to work. It's worked its way out. It's just, I don't see any issue with that. Again, he's independent. I think the best thing we can do is to make sure we have a good option for him. And then, he needs to be part of that decision, too.
I might be a little biased on the subject, but I consider Dr. Tabor a friend of mine, and he helped me move to town when I moved back to town, and he's just been a fantastic person. He's a good Christian man, and I just want to make assurance that he's treated fairly.
That's our intent as well.
Okay. I would like to understand, is the Sanford Clinic the part of what has to be raised, or is that what it is?
The Sanford Clinic, so the building that is under that footprint there is where Dr. Tabor has one half of that building, and Sanford Clinic has the other half. They have a nurse practitioner there. Dr. Van Clay also would come and go there between there and Mountain Lake. I believe he is now at Mountain Lake primarily. So, they have a location. Now, that doesn't affect their Riverbend piece.
Okay, was my kind of back question, but is the Sanford, is that a Sanford Clinic then down by Riverbend Center? Are they moving
Correct.
up there?
They have two locations, so they're split. And I think they've always desired to be one and be, together in the campus. So.
Okay, so that's a plan, moving into the facility. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Now just a couple more questions from me, is the demo. I believe you had August, September in that. And I guess it's my understanding, and it's no action tonight, but that will be something that would have to come through the council on demolition, right? And that time frame, and this is kind of how it moves into the financing part. If, I mean, you're going to need to know and start the project once you demo, right? Okay, so that'll come about at the same time? Okay, and so that's coming down the road. But my financing part of that is, because USDA, I understand USDA, and it does a lot of strings attached, right? And different things, the BABA stuff, all of that. And archaeological review and all of that stuff. And it's time consuming. And is your anticipation to utilize existing funds then to get started without the financing?
Yes, that would be the intent. Like I said, is we don't necessarily know what the mix is going to be between cash reserves that will go into the project or additional financing, but we do have reserves that could get the project started. Now, just like with anything, we want to make sure we're on track to have financing in place. Taking down the building, in all honesty, doesn't need to be part of the project. We do have cash ability to do that. But the thing is you certainly don't want to take down the building. It's being utilized, obviously, as clinic space, and you're probably just going to add more issues than good out of that. So the ideal approach would be to take down the building, make sure financing is at least temporarily funded, and we could use our reserves to get started. But again, that also leads into some of that USDA discussion. So as I shared, in the next month, 6 weeks, we just have to make sure we follow the plan and make sure we're utilizing what's available to us, I guess.
Well, and also what and John, correct me if I'm wrong, as we're looking and deciding about all of our financial options, it really is not about, if there's an option, it's what option and what mix is going to make the most sense. So as we're looking at the USDA portion and the BABA, expectations, we really have to vet out, is the cost of going back and doing that and the delay, because any delay, if we delay this out, it halts our what we're doing right now and any ability to move forward until that moves forward. So again, we're at a standstill with our growth strategy. Is the cost of us having to go through and look at that and do that worth, and are we really saving that much by going that route and going through that, as opposed to going out and looking at other financing options? So again, it's about really looking at what's the perfect match, what's the perfect mix, and weighing those out, which John will be working with Stephen and Eilers on that as well.
Yeah, I think the big piece is because the hospital is financially sound, it's not an issue of the ability to pay for it. I mean, obviously we don't have $30 million in cash just to write a check, but that's why we do the feasibility studies, and we did a preliminary one to make sure that this project's a go. You'll do more, has the ability to go. You'll do a more in-depth one when it comes to the financing piece. But you have a pretty good sense of where you're at, and not to liken it exactly to like a mortgage, but you get pre-approved for a mortgage. And so if you're not going to be able to afford the mortgage, maybe you're going to have to look at a different house, right, and different options. So it's the same type of thing. Is all indications is that we have the ability to afford this project. Again, it's just a matter of how will we fund it.
Thank you, John. And thank you for the invite to myself and the council members to come to that preliminary financing session. I think that was helpful. for me and the other members that were there. And I don't disagree that, you know, you're in a position, I thought it was a very conservative type approach with the preliminary, once again, look at it. So when that's done, and then we'll expect you back for a couple things, right? Okay. Other council members? Jim?
Yeah, I'm kind of conservative. I don't like to spend money. And I know, yeah, the USDA, what about Sanford? I just see they were, for 2 years, they were building in that Vandemark building over across from the hospital. Have they ever been asked if they would be willing to bid for using their name?
So we have not actively explored any type of, what do you want to say, targeted capital fundraising at this point. Again, you know, I think we need to, you know, really look at us as an independent entity first and foremost, to say, can we make this work regardless, and not be dependent upon other organizations? Not to say that that wouldn't be something we would go out and do targeted campaigning on. However, I think it's important to know that we are separate. We don't share revenues with Sanford. You know, Sanford is really there to be our tertiary partner and to be able to help us with some negotiating with our payers and our vendors. I think it's important in this initial phase to keep that clear, and not really convolute that, because we do have Avera here as well too as one of our partners also. So it was important for us to say, can we, as an independent operating entity, make sure that we can afford this and grow this on our own esteem, based off of our strategy? And our strategy is really one that's going to allow us to control our own destiny and not be controlled by other organizations, I guess, if you will.
I would.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Thank you for stating it that way, because independent was the first thing I was going to say after Jim asked his question. I think that's an important thing for our community, and not having that tie specifically, I would say, unless they want to give us grant money in equal proponent, you know, amounts from Avera and Sanford. Okay.
Yeah, I think, again, I think being independent is really, really important. The systems you cannot imagine the capital demand on those systems year in and year out. It's just, yeah, they look like they have, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars and all this, but the demands on them is crazy. And I've witnessed it firsthand. But, and here's the part that I think gets really touchy. They have, you know, 46 hospitals, and they've got 1,500 physicians in clinics. And when it comes to even recruitment and things like that, where are we on that list? You know, and frankly, that's where I feel like we need to be in charge of in control of our future. Yes, if they bring physicians in, great, or whatever, but frankly, we need to be driving that, and I think we can sell it better, and we can accomplish it better, coming from a really solid plan here on our own. And that's the good thing. We kind of have the best of both worlds. We still have those tertiary partners out there that we're connected to and can tap into.
Dr. Blue, I think I know the answer to this, but you're independent, right?
I am.
Okay.
I retired. I was with Sanford, though, for my whole life, since high school, frankly. Training. I'm a family physician for 12 years, and then I went into administration. But I retired 3 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Scott, you're next.
I have kind of two questions. With the city of Windom, with their infrastructure, when we had built onto High Life, we added some sewer stuff and our electrical grid and stuff like that. Now, is this going to affect that any? Because before, when we did High Life, it raised taxes and, you know, usage tax, stuff like that on there. And the citizens of Windom, I'm trying to figure out what's best for them. And on the second question is, with a Windom getting bailout money, is it financially stable to go ahead and start building a $30 million thing?
So to answer your first question, no, it is not going to have any type of an impact on needing additional revenues or raising taxes for the citizens of Windom. We do have that capacity, the electrical capacity and infrastructure already set up. And again, we made sure of that when we went through and did our, mechanical engineering master facility planning. So there should be no disruption there or any issues there. Secondly, High Life, really, the closure of High Life from the hospital and medical care perspective really does not significantly impact the hospital and their services. It's not going to impact that piece very significantly at all. I think what we need to look at is your hospital and healthcare systems are actually economic growth engines. So when you have large businesses that are looking to come to your community, one of the first things that they look for is how strong of a healthcare system does that community have. And some of the rationale behind that is if you have workers that are getting hurt and they have to take a full day off of work and travel far away to get their health care, that's ruining their production ability. We have the ability to partner with them for, maybe some more cost-effective tests and procedures to where if they had to send it out. So there's mutual benefits to having a strong healthcare facility in your community. In addition to that, when they see that, you've got people that are coming through as we're attracting others from other communities for our services. They're spending money in your community as well, too. They're supporting your community. If we have professionals, when we're attracting physicians, you're bringing physicians and their families into this community, which is helping grow your community. So your hospital really is an economic growth accelerator. You have to have the tools to be an attractive option. And right now, in healthcare as well, too, it's all about timing. We have a competitive edge right now because we are financially strong. We are an attractive option, and we have support to move forward and meet our strategic plans. And actually, we are well ahead of where we thought we would be in our strategic plan, where other healthcare facilities, quite frankly, are not in that position. They are looking to see how are we going to remain independent, not how are we going to invest in ourselves. So in healthcare, you have to take those opportunities when they come, if they make sense, because you need that competitive advantage. It's better to go out and get that and capture it ahead of time as opposed to being second or third in line, because now you're just in a competitive, you're competing against these other facilities that offer the same. If we are able to go out there and show our quality first and capture those patients first, just like our large organizations do, we have the ability to retain those individuals as well, too. So that's another important aspect here. So I understand how you could link those two and worry about that. But from all intents and purposes, from our standpoint and the strategies and what it can help do for Windom, now is the perfect time for this to occur.
Any further questions? Jenny?
I'll just make one quick comment. I think I'm under the thought of if you build it, they will come. I mean, I think if we build something like this, we will attract the services and the providers to come to our community. I'm really excited about, just the community wellness facility that we talk about, just to get that education out. I think now you utilize the historical center, for the doctors to come out and give talks and give programs and education to our community. And so to have all that in-house would be great. And also I think you could fill a floor with just mental health. I think that is a need that we need in our community. With Southwest Mental Health having an actual facility in Windom and having their main place in Worthington, having people have to travel there for in-person services. Yes, they offer telehealth services, but I just don't think for mental health that in-person face-to-face is really important. And so I really foresee the mental health part really expanding in the future as well, something that you really could help offer to the community. But I'm just very excited about this possibility.
Thank you, Jenny. One final call. My final comments are going to be regarding this information. I appreciate the public information that you shared tonight. I think our public was wondering, and I've talked to you all about that a little bit in pieces, but I think this is information the public needed to hear. And they had a good explanation tonight. I encourage anybody to reach out to folks in the hospital if they have any further questions. Once again, I appreciate it. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, John. Thank you, Dr. Dan. All right. Thanks. Well, that was a one-page of notes. So, electric department, we're going to move right along. Electric department, truck garage change order. Jason is here if he wants to take the hot seat, or if not. Maybe a brief explanation, I guess, of the project and what the change order is for.
All right, there we go. All right, Jason Segura, Electric Superintendent. Just to clarify, I guess I did not catch it. It's a change order to the generator that we purchased from Ziegler. So basically, we ordered the generators last September because the lead time was about 18 months. At that time, we didn't really know design of facility, sizing of certain things, some of the code for the fire code and stuff. But as we've gone through design and we're getting close with the generator building, engineers are kind of recommending that we go with 300-gallon day tanks just to keep more fuel in the building. And then also with these day tanks, they'll also have a return fuel pump on top. This is required. Previously, day tanks didn't have to return back to the main tank if they overfilled, but they now have to refill. So we needed to add these pumps to the top of the tanks. So the cost for that, to change the tanks from 200 to 300 and add the pumps on top, was $11,204.
Okay, and I assume this is all paid for by the electric department?
Yep, it'll come out of the reserve fund.
Okay, so I believe this is change order number 1. Do we have a recommendation, I'm sure, from the utility department to approve? And Jason, council wish to take action. Marv?
I would make the motion to approve the purchase.
I'll second.
Motion from Marv to approve the change order number 1. And seconded by Dennis, or Jim. Okay, sorry about that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Any other updates you wanted to share?
Well, if you want, I can give a quick update of the truck shed since you asked. So, as everybody probably has noticed, most people have noticed in town, the trees got cut down, shelter's gone. They started digging Wednesday. They got water and sewer and storm across the street into the lot for the new building. They started excavating for soil remediation, call it what you will. So they did end up running into the old cooling tower footings for the old cooling tower from the 30s, and it slowed them down quite a bit. It consumed about a quarter of the building, ended up being footings and floor from that old building. So Well, we had drawings that the building was there at one time. We did do 5 soil borings, and we never hit it. So, you know,
Probably another change order.
so there'll be a little change order. It all had to go, being it was all heavily rebarred concrete. It ended up having to go out to the landfill. So, a little bit longer trucking than they anticipated, and so forth. So. But they made really good headway since they've made it out of there, so they should be done with the soil corrections, and next week should be pouring footings. So,
Sounds good. Thank you.
yep.
Next item, Park and Recreation Commission recommendation. And this is in regards to there's a resolution in the packet for the shelter house rental rates, a couple of them, all included in one, I believe. Do you have that up? Okay. Did you want to, Jenny?
Okay, we met as a Park and Rec board and discussed rates at the new Teagles Park shelter that the Lions Club is finishing up and then will be donated to the city. But we wanted to get out ahead of this and get rates set so that they were in place, because this is near completion time on their facility. And so what the Park and Rec Board was recommending is half-day rental of $55 and a full-day rental of $110, with a damage deposit of $150. And then if you want to use the kitchen and bathroom facilities there, it would be an additional $25. There is other bathroom facilities available up there, so this would be, you know, if you want to use the actual facilities attached with, and the kitchen and bathroom are locked and separate, so if, you know, we'd have to open that up for people to use that. This is a, you know, very expensive and very nice building. We want to keep it that way, so the damage deposit is something that we feel is necessary. There will be cameras and things installed up there as well. So it'll be hopefully easier to tell if there is damage, where that damage is coming from, and if it's during the time that people are renting it or off times, those kind of things, so we can hopefully man that better. So that was the rates there with that. And then Castle Kingdom, we were looking at $40 for a full day. And that is, we're just trying to include the tax, because some people knew it was $40, but then they came here and there's tax added onto it, and so they already have their check made out, and then to dig for a few more cents. And we just figured it's easier if all these prices that we have include the tax in the price, so when we have that on our website or tell people and they come in, they're not surprised with that little tax extra. So that's the only change there with Castle Kingdom. And then of course someday when Island Park, hopefully that gets done, we'll come to you with what that would be, but right now that's not a usable rentable space right now, so that's why we're not including that.
Very good. Any questions?
The $55 or $110 a day, I guess I'm either missed it or I've never heard anything. Who is going to be responsible for cleaning that building and taking care of it from the city?
Yeah, the city parks guys will be the ones, or gals, the ones going through and, you know, taking care of that, manning that. But the people that would rent it are responsible for, and that's part of the damage deposit. They need to make sure that they've cleaned up from the time they've rented it. Otherwise, that's when they wouldn't get their damage deposit back, so we can pay the city workers to go out there and get that cleaned up between events. But there's always, you know, we have the rental things, because if you want to rent it and guarantee that it's your space during that time, if it's not being used, then, you know, people can come in and sit and have a picnic or whatever, you know, on time without renting it if it's not. And there is a plan to have, we've talked with the Lions as well, to have a board up there so that we can update with who has it rented when, so people can pull up and see if it's going to be rented out or not. And then all that can be done online through the city website. So all of those kind of things can be taken care of that way, as far as renting and looking to see if it's rented or not will be on the website. Otherwise, just coming into City Hall or calling City Hall, all that information will be on there once everything's up and running.
One last call for questions. If not, I entertain someone to introduce that resolution.
I'll make a motion to introduce resolution.
I'll second.
Resolution introduced by Scott, seconded by Jim. This resolution establishing the rates, charges, and fees for shelter house rental. Any questions? Roll call.
Nelson,
Yes.
Grunig,
Yes.
Benson,
Yes.
Quaid,
Yes.
Esplin.
Okay, last meeting, we talked about item number 6, which is giving the authority to Steve to submit a 2024 state bonding request. Steve, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just that the deadline was June 16th. I got the request in and submitted. They do ask for a resolution of support from the governing body, which is the city council. I sent the resolution from the previous bond submission along with the minutes from your last meeting with the consensus. This would then kind of replace those two items in that management and budget form. So,
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for getting that done prior to the deadline. How about an introduction of that resolution?
I'll introduce the resolution.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dennis. I'll take your motion and Scott's second. Marv was a little tardy on that one. So with that said, any discussion? A roll call, Steve. Oh, one question from Marv.
Is the 993 an updated number?
yeah, the 993 is an updated number from DGR. They looked at it, and then since this is a 24 project, you could either have MMB calculate a inflationary, or you can have your engineer do it. We just got it from DGR, so that is an updated number.
Any further questions? Roll call.
Esplin,
Yes.
Benson,
Yes.
Quaid,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Grunig.
Yes.
Very good. Now to the long-awaited cannabis law discussion update. And we're going to start, I'm going to have Steve just give a briefing. We were at the county commission meeting today. I'm sorry,
Can-
Jim?
Yeah, can we take a break just for 5 minutes or so?
We'll take a break for 5 minutes. This could be a little while. Okay. We're going to recess. I'm sorry. We'll recess for 5 minutes. The council is out of recess. Item number 7, cannabis law discussion update. Let y'all know that Steve and I attended the county board meeting today, of which this was a topic over there for them to discuss. And discussion was held. Steve, could I ask you to give an update on the results?
Sure. County Board, well, let me back up a step. At your last council meeting, the consensus from the council was to approach the county board and see if they were planning on doing any regulation, licensing, things like that of cannabis, THC products. And so the county board was contacted, and they placed an item on their discussion agenda, which was this evening as well. Mayor and I attended that meeting. The county board discussed it, and their consensus was is they would take up looking at licensing. Now, I think we're kind of where they were going with that. I did ask a specific question whether it was going to be THC products, you know, like gummies, things like that, and or dispensary, which is more the natural product. And the answer, I believe, from the board chair was they were going to look at both. Okay, so that's kind of where they were going. What they did is they appointed an ad hoc committee. Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Gravely, the sheriff, and the Cottonwood County attorney were going to form an ad hoc committee. And so they're going to start reviewing this and discussing which direction they would like to go. So I think there's a little bit as I mentioned the mayor earlier, I think there's a little bit of a disconnect, because in August 1st, the THC products can be sold. The state's going to license the cannabis dispensaries, and they're setting up the Office of Cannabis and all of that as they go. The state will be turning out their first licensing for those in probably January of 2025. It's going to take them like about a year and a half to get up to that level. So kind of where the gap is in what's going to happen between August 1st now and that state licensing. And so that's where you may or may not want to have a role in it. And so if you have discussion, continuation from what you had at the last meeting, you can see some of the same information is on screen in the packet from your last discussion. And I did kind of point out that difference between the THC and the cannabis sales, just because we didn't really get into that the last time. I wanted to make sure that that was fresh in your minds as well. So.
Okay, does everybody understand the difference between the sale of the actual physical cannabis part of it and the THC, the stuff that we're in on the moratorium right now? Okay. And so the question that comes to council then, as the county's going to lead the I don't know how to call it, the bigger picture on the cannabis, and that yet is not law. They don't even have, the state does not even have that office, I forget what they're called, I don't know, cannabis something, but the state hasn't even set that up, okay? And so they're going through that process, and so at this point, we need to deal with the moratorium that we had established that continued until August 1. Okay? And so we need guidance, the council to Steve on how that could happen. The time frame is critical here because that needs to be done in basically a month and 5 weeks. There is time that we could pursue this ordinance, and I think Steve will do a much better job of explaining it than I will.
Just from a time standpoint, you have your next meeting is the 5th of July, and so if you had direction tonight on any licensing that you wanted to pursue, we would have to develop an ordinance, and so that first reading of that ordinance would be scheduled for July 5th. July 4th is the holiday, so it'd be the 5th. And then once that is developed, then you'd have first reading, second reading, and publication ultimately before it goes into effect. Kind of concurrently, licensing applications, things like that would need to be developed. So kind of based on what we hear from the council this evening, if you say, yeah, we're going to pursue some sort of licensing, we'll be working on developing an application form to get that out. Ultimately, what you do with the ordinance would determine how many licenses, things like that. But we would need to be kind of working on some of these things concurrently. And then kind of envisioning if you did go down that path and pass the first reading, then we would put those license applications out to folks to fill those applications out and apply for a license to sell product. And then while we're collecting those, that second reading window will continue to progress. And then if the second reading is approved at the second meeting of July, essentially, then right after that point, it'd go to publication. That's when those licensee holders can be, selected and finishing up that paperwork and going through that so that they were ready to roll August 1st, if that's the direction you wish to go. So, like I said, it's very tight. There might be some timing of your second meeting of July. Our charter does require 14 days between the first and second reading, and because the meeting on July 4th is pushed to the 5th due to the holiday, that then would push your second meeting in the month to the 19th if you so chose, or you could go the 18th as normal and then, recess and reschedule, but we can kind of hit that later as you get to it. So, but just to let you know about the timing of things.
And Steve, just explain, if the council does nothing, what would it be, what?
Yeah, as we talked about at a previous meeting, if there's no licensing action by council, then any of the products that are legal under the state statute could be sold at pretty much any qualifying retailer that would fall under the whatever the state rules are.
Questions for Steve? Somewhat complicated.
If we make any remarks or any notions forward, would it affect what the county's going to put forth?
So the county is going to continue to work on their whatever they're going to do, right? So if you decide that you want to have a licensing ordinance, we can write that so that it takes in consideration any future county ordinance. You guys could opt in, opt out, those kind of things. And those are some of the legalities that we'd have to work out. And, you know, they also will probably have another legislative session in January of 24, which could, you know, move things one way or the other. So we may have to relook at it again anyway. But this is kind of get it going and get it up, so.
And I think it comes down to the question, do you want to open it up to any retailers? Or do you want to put some conditions on it? Do you want to follow the cigarette license holders? Do you want to add on and off sell liquor because they have infused drinks available in those amounts? And so you put all that together, you know, and what control, if any, does the city, you know, want to have? I think that well, I'm not going to give you my opinion. Council questions, that'll trigger my opinion.
But you were saying, Steve, if we do nothing, the state law requires people to sell this, and
I think you're referring to more of the cannabis portion of it, and that's where we're talking about the natural product in the Office of Cannabis. The state is going to set up and they're going to license. What that law was, that there needs to be one per 12,500 people. The THC is a different product, and so those could be sold by retailers, essentially any place, as long as they meet the criteria, which is the product has to be behind counter, they have to do age verifications, those kind of things. And then any licensing requirements, if you decide to put some on, like not next to a school or something like that. I mean, those are things that are in your purview.
yeah, I was asking about not the cannabis, but the THC, and but if we do nothing, then
it could be sold.
It can be sold, and we're not impeding anything or stopping anything from happening. Okay.
I think in the past, do nothing never was a solution for anything. So, and personally, I'd like to see it all go away. But I think probably developing an ordinance is what we need to do, although I don't necessarily know all the rules that needs to be in there.
No, that's a good question, and that's why we have to rely somewhat, on guidance from our city administrator.
There were, as we talked about last year when you enacted the moratorium, there were several examples that were provided at that time and since of cities that did go out and license them at that point in time. So there are a few examples of those that we would probably follow because they've been in place for nearly a year now. And so I would contact those cities and say, okay, you enacted this ordinance. What would you have done differently maybe? Or how would you have changed language? Or if there's been any challenges, court challenges to it, the city attorney would know those things.
I guess that my thinking is okay, if we don't do anything, we have nothing to do with the licensing, but yet we've got to police it all. So I think that if it's going to happen, we should be in charge of the license so that, personally, They can sit in a tree until their eyes bug out like a bullfrog. I could care less, but that's what I think, because our police are going to end up policing.
And I'll just throw out what I think is maybe the easiest way is possibly, see what the council thinks, is on and off sale liquor, right? Guess that would take care of it within city limits on the infused drinks, correct? Okay. And then also we have, how many cigarette license places do we have, Steve?
I believe we currently have 10 cigarette licenses. And then there's, if on-call liquor, there are 5, or on-sale liquor, there are 5 and 1 off-sale.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Oh, including the liquor store, right? Okay. And so you'd have 6 on the liquor side and then 10 on the cigarette purchases. Steve needs guidance if we're going to draft an ordinance to get this going, okay? I think, you could start this and, maybe there's more than 10, right? There could be people interested. Maybe they would buy a cigarette license. This could be a separate one license, is how we're envisioning this. This would be a separate license. And the council needs to determine how many of those do you want?
That would be in a draft ordinance, so
Yes.
you're going to have an answer to that question either when we draft it or we leave a blank in it and you fill it in on first reading. But I think to be fair to people that are thinking about starting that business or carrying that, it would be good to know, for them to go to a bunch of work, if you're going to have a very limited number, would be unfair to those retailers. So I think they should have at least some idea if you're talking, 1 or 10 or, possibly more than that, to be fair to those folks.
Myself, I think if we're going to do it that way, as many we have tobacco license, and I don't think all of them.
Talk into your mic, Jim.
Read Windom Uncensored. Anyway, I think we should have one for each licensed that has tobacco license. Just say 10. They may not all want to do this, but we would still have the 10 so that if somebody come along later and said, well, I want to, that's my thinking.
Now, the other side of that, I would say, is you may have more than 10. I've heard other people interested in this. And if we get more than 10, do you give preference to the tobacco? I don't know if that's fair. This is a new type registration process, right? And so you could, if you're going to set 10, I think it should be a lottery, because what if you get 11 or 12 or whatever registrations and draw them out of a hat? Or, I don't know what process you'd want to go through. I don't know that this is new, so maybe not the preference to tobacco places. I think this is different. From what I understand, there's other people interested in having it at their business. And so this would be separate from tobacco, standalone, and it comes down to how many. And if we exceed that on applications, what does the council want to do to selection process?
Okay, so my thought is that we do nothing. And in doing nothing, it's really not saying we're just not doing anything. But if the county is looking at taking this on, they need to work on a timely process to take this on and set that for the whole county. And we can, take the lead from that. And like what I think I'm hearing Steve say is, if the county does something and the city, wants to do something different in the future, we could look at doing something different. But I think we let the county take the lead because they're the ones that are, had agreed at their meeting that they're going to look into this, form the committee, And I think the committee with the sheriff and the county attorney, that sounds like a good committee that should be taking the lead on this and making the decisions. And really, in the short amount of time between when this could start on August 1st and when the county would decide something, why should we go through all the work of licensing, having people apply, do all this, and then, 4 to 6 months down the road or whatever, the county sets things and we just say, okay, we're just going to go with that. And then all these people went through all this work. And then also the cost of, us meeting a special meeting, the staff having to draft all these things up for what I foresee as a temporary, it's going to be a short term. I wouldn't think that the county would hold this off a year or something to make a decision on how to go. And I don't know that there's going to be that many people that are going to just jump into it come August 1st, that first day. They're all going to have products here, And we're talking about the gummies, the THC infused beverages, the creams, topical thing, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about dispensaries. We're not talking about the big, growing operations here. We're talking about, the products that are already here, they're just at a little higher level than what they currently are here because we put that moratorium. So if we didn't have the moratorium, like some other cities throughout the state that didn't do that, they've been already selling the products that, we are going to start see around here August 1st. And those other cities didn't do a moratorium and, I think it's been all right. And so I just think it's not worth all the time and energy of putting our staff through and putting the businesses or whoever through of doing all this to license when hopefully the county will come up with something in a shorter period of time and we'll just go with that's my thought.
I agree, and I really don't want to hold anything up for some of the businesses that would want to sell some of this stuff in their stores so they have income coming in off of this stuff. We got to kind of go with the flow and look at it as a future thing and not look at the past because yesterday's gone, tomorrow is our future, and if this is going to be part of our future, we got to engage it. We can't fight it no more. It's among us. So I feel if we just do nothing and let the state or the county do what they need to do, and if they need something that we can help them with, we'd be more than happy to help them with it. Thank you.
Could somebody tell me are there rules and regulations on that sale right now? I mean, do you have to register with the state for what we're talking about?
I could answer that.
Okay, well, hold on. Before we can take any comment, does the council and, what's that? Would the council allow the answer to that question? It'll take a motion to do that.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to approve the answer. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Please. And if you could turn the mic on so we can hear as well, and if you could just state your name and where you're from and that sort of thing.
Hi guys, I'm Rebecca Tolan. I own Nash Tobacco along with my boyfriend Nash. He's closing the store right now. But so what you're asking, I think, is the fact that we would like to sell those products. It has kind of hurt us that we haven't been able to for the last year. But we will have to register with the Department of Health of Minnesota by October 1st. Once we are registered, that's going to compile a list of all the retailers, which I think is going to allow them to send somebody out to make sure compliance checks and things like that. So, sorry, I'm really nervous because I've never done this, but. So that is the question of that. We will register with the Department of the State of Minnesota Health by October 1st.
Okay, so that's the question is that a requirement of the state of Minnesota that
Yes.
a business registers to sell these products?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Feel free to come by if you have any questions, please. We would love to talk to you all. Thank you.
Jenny?
Okay, so before you get too far, just in case
We're not-
we have
we
any
answered.
other. I think there's a different, like, we already have people that are selling things that are the 3 nanograms or less. And then we're talking about moving up to the 5 nanograms or less or whatever in the, and so will the change, and this is what I haven't been able to like read or find out for sure, if you're selling the 3 nanograms or less, which you've been doing for quite some time, does that then require registration moving forward, or, you know, some kind of something with the state, or is it only if it's the 5 or higher? You know, that's an unknown, I guess.
No,
So yeah,
They're
so
shaking
then
their head
it's
no.
really,
Yeah.
you know, the people that have already been selling the gummies and the, you know, creams and things like that locally, you know, with the moratorium, they have not had to do anything. And most of them people, I'm sure, will continue to sell that. Some of them have expressed interest that because it's going up, you know, 2 nanogram. I mean, it's not a high jump. We're not talking that this is, you know, stuff that's going to really make you high, you know, that little bit of a difference. But that little bit of a difference, what we're hearing is they are going to have to do some registration through the state. And they are, you know, there's things out there through the state that, you know, it can't look like it's wrapped in kids package. You know, it has to be clearly labeled. It has to say the amount of nanograms per milliliter or whatever that's in each serving size. You have to make sure you're selling to people 21 and older. You have to have it behind the counter. You know, there's different things like that that's already set by the state. So it's like, that's why I feel like, why should we have to go through all this additional stuff and work when the state kind of has, I mean, I know it's not as good as we'd like it, but they do have some preliminary things set out that I think will keep it safe until the county decides what to do.
my question, okay, one is the behind the counter. It still has to be behind the counter?
Yes.
Okay. That takes care of one concern. And if they wanted to increase, they have to register. Okay. And so, do we, or does the council have any concerns of, it would have to be a retail store, is that correct? I mean, I worry about the school areas. And I'm not, yeah, you can do whatever you want to back there, that's fine. I'm not versed in this, I'm trying to find out. But I'm trying to find out if it's going to be an issue, you know, in our schools. Apparently, you know, it's not right now, but can somebody sell it in a residential area? Or does it have to be a retail shop?
I mean, this kind of goes back to your basic zoning. You know, you don't have, there are certain businesses that are allowed in residential areas. Some are not. They're by conditional use variance, those kind of things. This would predominantly be a business district type of sale, just like any other retailer. So it would be in one of those type of zones. If there was a business that was currently in, like, say, residential district, let's say it's a at-home beauty shop or something of that nature, that then sold this, that would be an interesting question to ask, because I don't know the answer to that. This just, it hasn't gone far
So,
enough through to be vetted.
This isn't about myself, it's about kids, okay? And I'd love to think that, you know, the parents would watch out for that, you know. I just don't want it to be like, a kid's got out of school, hey, you want some gumdrops or whatever it is, you know. I hope that's not the case. And so if, as Steve said, it is, yeah, business district, then I would probably concur. But I have a hard time doing it. But Marv, you had a question?
Yeah, just the thought about the county part. Can we change the do nothing to wait and see and forget do nothing? If we wait, what does the city administrators thought on the liabilities to wait and see?
Well, you don't really have any increased liability because you're not licensing them. You're not in, in an enforcement role other than what the state is going to mandate you to do is probably like alcohol or cigarettes. You're going to have to do spot checks, and I know local PD does that now. That's probably something we'd have to continue to do, and you'd have that same liability that you would have with those products. But as far as an additional liability, if you allow the sales or don't allow the sales, it's permitted under state statute. So I really don't think you would take on any additional liability. If you take on licensing, those kind of things, then you do take on a little extra because you've actively engaged yourself in that role.
And you mentioned the zoning issue. If the county is doing the licensing, do we control the zoning part?
That'll be part of their discussion, I'm sure, because they did mention land use at their meeting, so they are aware of it.
One important thing to me is, I know this is the smaller part of the whole deal. Scott, do you have an opinion on this? Let it go. I'm curious. I got to hear from you. Unlike Steve says, law enforcement has to make sure, what all goes into this, Scott?
I think the wait and see approach is probably the best approach you can do. There's already safeguards in place where they have to be 21, show valid ID. So there's safeguards in place. That liability falls on that retailer at that point in time. So I'd say wait and see. That's my opinion. County commissioner contacted me today that asked my opinion. I said I could go either way, whether the city regulated it or whether the county did. Sounds like the county is the one that's taken the lead on it, so I could support that. The thing that we have to look at from the law enforcement perspective is not so much how this is going to be dispensed, it's usage in public, and my recommendation on that is it's a legal product just like alcohol is a legal product, and you kind of govern the two the same way. And that's a discussion maybe for another time, but I don't see an issue by waiting and seeing. There's already safeguards in place by Minnesota statute, and that trumps, if we were to do enforcement on it, our city attorney always advises to use a state statute rather than a city ordinance. So,
okay, thank you, Scott. Thank you for that answer. I appreciate that. Council action, it's either one, go to an ordinance, or to do some regulation, which sounds to me like it's about the same thing as the law.
Just a question. Keep in mind, I'm new to the council. There is a moratorium, and that's going to expire on August 1st. That's where we're at. Okay. That's what's my understanding.
And this just allows it, we're not going to sell license then under the proposal that's being discussed. So it's not under wait and see, it's letting it happen, okay? Wait and see is for the big cannabis dispensary, that type of thing. So, right? That is for the next step.
I believe the wait and see approach is to wait on, see the county ordinance for the cannabis dispensary and any THC licensing that they would encounter.
Right.
That's my recollection
but
of
it
your
makes it
discussion.
August 1st, it would be legal on any retailer that is licensed.
Correct.
Okay, right? Yes. Everybody understand that? Okay. Jenny, a comment again?
No, I was just going to say, can I make a motion then that we take no action on the regulation of THC and cannabis at this time and let the moratorium expire on August 1st?
Okay.
I'll second that.
Well, she asked me if it was that a motion, Jenny?
Yes.
And a second by Scott. Okay, discussion. One more time, discussion, final comments. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously from what I heard. Okay? Very good. Okay, yep, the other one will follow, the guidance of what the county does at that time and see what they come with. Yep. And I know we had folks in the audience who was waiting to see what we'd do. That answer has been approved by the City of Windom Council. Thank you for coming tonight. Okay. We have personnel recommendation, arena hiring. And this is.
This is a seasonal hiring. Travis Jansen, he's been employed with us for a number of years doing seasonal work in the summer. And so recommendation from staff is to rehire Travis for arena and parks work.
I'll make a motion of such recommendation to hire Travis.
I'll second.
Motion Scott, seconded by Jenny. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Police Department. You have recommendation. There's actually two of them. And the first one is regarding vacation comp time hours, temporary maximum accrual approval. We are going to be 3 men or women short on our police staff, and I know that the officers are working a lot of hours, a lot of additional time. We'd like to offer them some relief by vacation of the comp time hours, temporarily maximum accrual approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the comp time maximum accrual approval.
Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Jim to approve that one. Any discussion, Steve?
Are you going to designate either the police chief or myself the ability to grant that waiver, or do you want them all to come back to the council for you specifically on a case-by-case basis?
I will ask for in that is the motion second and approval, allowing, I would say, between the chief and Steve jointly. If that works for both of you, you can communicate that where you're at. Okay?
Yes.
Is that your intent,
Yes.
Jim?
Yep.
Okay, and the
That's what the
council,
hours
any
is.
objection? Then that will fall as in the motion. Thank you for pointing that out. Compensation.
You gotta vote.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Yeah, you got to keep track of me. Compensation. Once again, 3 employees short. One thing is we're not getting applications. We are a ways behind. And as you know, we have union negotiations coming up. In the interim, as the police school, law enforcement training are graduating, there are a limited amount of people available. Almost double the amount of positions, and we would like to be able to retain some of these graduates. And so the proposal is to raise that compensation by $3 an hour. And that will include the chief and assistant chief, because they are exempt employees. Theirs would go up based on the 40-hour week is how I'm stating it, but you will work that out. So with that said, are there questions? And Steve would be glad to answer them.
We do have an MOU in the packet, or an MOA with the labor union, LALS, And then the supervisor one would just be $3 an hour based on a 2,080-hour work schedule, just to be a salary entry, so.
That's what I said, but you said it correctly.
I'll make a motion to approve the compensation package.
Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Marv. Any discussion? I hope this helps. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, Scott, Assistant Chief, and our officers that are on board. And we appreciate the work that you guys do. Okay, new business. Jenny.
I just wanted to bring up for discussion, we have our annual Night to Unite coming up, and that is on the first Tuesday in August. And so the first Tuesday in August is August 1st. Our council meeting obviously impacts that time because Night to Unite runs from 5 to 7. In the past years, we've voted to start our council meeting late. And so I just want to bring that up for discussion to see if we could start our council meeting at 7:30 on Tuesday, August 1st, to allow time for all of us to enjoy the Night to Unite and interacting with our law enforcement and our ambulance service and our fire department and everyone that we have downtown. We have a lot of city employees involved in that evening. And I think it's important to get out and interact with our community and then, start our meeting late. So just to consider.
Do you want to take action on that now, Steve? Is that a motion, Jenny?
I would love to make a motion that on Tuesday, August 1st, we start our city council meeting at 7:30 to allow time to attend the annual Night to Unite.
I'll second that.
Motion, Jenny. Second, Dennis, for that meeting to start at 7:30. And everyone, a condition on that is you all attend Night to Unite. Okay. All right. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Any other new business? Old business. One thing I would like Steve to do is, people have been asking me about the state funding and how that's going with the High Life closure. I know, Steve, that we've been busy discussing items with our legislators and departments. Could you just give us a brief update?
Yep, sure. When in May, when the council passed the resolution, we sent that off to the state. Once the legislation was approved, part of that was a certification requirement. The mayor, city attorney submitted that paperwork to the state. That was sent to the Department of Revenue. We've had a couple of conversations with them. The legislation pushed the money to DEED, Department of Employment and Economic Development, so they will be doing the administration. And so we've started those discussions with them to get the paperwork going as far as a contract or agreement, and how to use those dollars. So there's conversations that are happening on that fairly consistently to try to get that started moving in the right direction. The start of the state's fiscal year is July 1, so they're kind of looking at that maybe as a start date, even though we have some pressing considerations with the housing development, but we're working with those folks as well. So we're just kind of keeping it, it's fluid day to day, but that's what we're working on, is talking to state agencies, trying to get the paperwork straightened out. And once we get that stuff done, that will come back to the council for approval too. So you will have that.
Thank you, Steve. Any other old business? Okay, council comments. Start with Scott.
Just want to make a comment that, when us city councilmen and city council ladies and Steve's up here doing the best job we can for the city of Windom, we don't have all the answers. We don't have all the right comments, but we're trying to do the best job we can for the city of Windom. So if you have any concerns, any questions you have of us, feel free to ask us, but ask us as human beings and people, so you ain't attacking us, because we've had a few, I've had a few people come up and kind of throw things at me, and I don't know all the answers, but I'll try to get the answers if I got them. But I just want to have you guys treat us like people too. Thank you.
Jenny?
I just, again, after, talking about the police department, information is just to give a shout out to all our officers. And I know the chief and the assistant chief have been working evenings, weekends, they're all trying to fill in and cover and do the best they can to provide the safety to our community. And hopefully we can recruit some people to come. Windom's a great city, I think, for law enforcement to come and work in. We have a great crew of law enforcement working currently within the city, and so hopefully we can find some way to recruit some people to come here so that we can keep our police force strong. But thank you very much for the efforts you guys are putting in and extra time.
Thank you, Jenny. Well said. Jim? Jim's good. Marv?
Well, on this fairly warm day in June, we got some memorial monuments installed at Loman Park, so that project is continuing to move forward, and we might get some flags tomorrow, and so it should be looking pretty good for the people who drive by on the highway.
Thank you, Marv. And after that comment, it's deserving to note that Marv has adopted the park. And I think that's very notable on the upkeep and whatnot of the park. Thank you very much, Marv, for doing that. Dennis?
I have nothing.
Steve?
Just in my council update, I did let you know that we met with the Premium Iowa Pork folks today out on site. They are just still completing the paperwork on the purchase of the property through the bankruptcy court and all the paperwork and all the sales that has to be done. They're going to take probably the next couple of months to really inventory and evaluate the facility. They just got into it, so they're looking at the equipment and what it might be used for and the best use of space. So they didn't really have any other plans to share other than that, but they were in town. They're looking forward to working with the community, and they're going to take about 60 days to do that. So as people are asking questions of what's going on, they're here, they're looking at the facility, they're going to be making some plans and be sharing those when those are available. But they asked about a 60-day window to do that. So don't expect too much in the near term on that yet.
Okay. With that, I think we're done. We're adjourned by unanimous consent. Thank you.